Good afternoon, everyone. It's September 4th, 2025, and we are at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting in the town of Chatham, pursuant to Governor Healey's March 28, 2025 signing of the Acts of 2025, extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until June 30, 2027. This meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder, people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 508-945-4410, conference ID 460964-253#, or join the meeting via the link on Microsoft Teams on the posted agenda, the town's website. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best effort, we may not be able to provide real-time access, but we'll post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. Just want to take this point in time to say, please shut off any device that makes any sort of noise whatsoever, and keep your conversations extremely brief, or take them into the hall, please. Our procedural steps are as follows. We do a roll call of all board members authorizing this form of meeting. We ask if anybody online participating via the call, make your identity known to us, and we should see the last 4 digits of your phone number. Hearing notice will be read by staff. That's Sarah Clark on my right. The representative in this case will be Penrose, and they will be providing a presentation today. And I will summarize all letters that have been received by the board. Then anyone that wishes to comment may speak up to 3 minutes, and there will be a clock on the screen up there, and we stick to the 3 minutes, and I'll let you know, give you a sort of a 20-second warning. The applicant, after all the letters are read and everybody talks, they'd have a chance then to rebut anything that they hear or make some statements. And in this case, Penrose, will be the ones that your statements are essentially geared towards, and they take notes. And there won't be a back and forth between the board and anybody that talks today, but Penrose will take notes, and then they will respond to some today, and then they will do some homework and respond to you next time, most likely. Let's see. Then the board will ask questions or make some preliminary statements about this application. And then at the end, we will continue the application to a date certain. Looks like it's likely to be October 16th, 2025 for the next meeting for this particular application. All votes are taken by roll call, and at the end of the meeting, we will close by a verbal confirmation and note the time of adjournment. So at this point in time, we're going to do a roll call vote of all members, and we'll start off with David Veach.
David H. Veach, and I approve this formatted meeting.
Ed Acton, and I approve.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve this format.
Stephen D. DeBoer, and I approve.
Virginia Fenwick, I approve.
And Randy Potash, I approve as well. We just have one board member absent today, and she will listen to the recording and sign an affidavit, and this way everybody will be able to vote. We're going to try to keep that up, so we know that if you miss a meeting, you need to listen to it and sign an affidavit that you did that. So we'd like to keep everybody in play, just like we are with the other application. So at this point, Randy Potash, I approve of this method as well. And Sarah?
Application number 25-077, Penrose LLC, 15 Milk Street, 16th floor, Boston, Mass. 02109. The property is owned by the Town of Chatham, located at 0 Meeting House Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 4E, Block 11A, Lot AB. The applicants are requesting the grant of a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 through 23, and 760 CMR 65, for the construction of 42 42 dwelling units in 8 structures. The applicants are requesting the grant of various waivers from regulations promulgated by the Chatham zoning bylaw and other local regulations. The property contains 3.57 acres in the R60 zoning district. This was continued from August 14th, 2025.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Rio Sacchetti. I'm a senior project manager with Penrose. Penrose is a national affordable and mixed income housing developer. We have over 27,000 apartments completed nationwide. We have a strong presence here on Cape Cod, including our Village at Nassau Green project in Eastham and our recently completed Cape Cod 5 redevelopment in Orleans. And we're excited to be here in Chatham, working on this meeting house submission that we have before you. It's very similar, well, it's the same development team. I know this board is at this point already very familiar with our team based on our Main Street comprehensive permit hearings. This is the same team, and it's a very similar type of development as well. Although here at Meeting House, it's a much different site. But for the benefit of the members of the public and for record, I'd like to reintroduce the team we have working on this. And here with me tonight is Carmen Chung, who's Regional Director for Penrose and sits with me in the Boston Penrose office. We also, I believe, have Joe Gaddy, our Associate Developer online. From the design team, we have Mark Werfel from Crowley Cottrell. He's the landscape architect. We have Joe Henderson from Horsley Witten, who's the civil engineer. And we also have Paul Atman from Union Studios, and Paul is the architect for the project. And of course, we also have our attorney, Andrew Singer, here as well with us tonight. So our approach on this project has been similar to Main Street. We started off with an approach we've called Embrace Chatham, which means focusing on what the town needs for affordable housing, what they were looking for, and then also a type of building and architecture that fits into the town. And so we've gotten better at that, I think, as we've progressed through the different boards on both Main Street and this Meeting House project, and especially going through the multiple hearings on Main Street. So we've really been able to fine-tune the type of architecture we've put into these buildings. I'll give a little bit of history on this for the benefit of the board and for the public. This project has been shaped by a multi-year effort by the town of Chatham. Where we came in, Penrose and the development team, was in early 2024 when the town issued an RFP to designate a developer for the site to build affordable and workforce housing. We responded and submitted a proposal to that RFP in April 2024, which resulted in us being selected by the town as a designated developer in July 2024. Since then, we had negotiated a land disposition agreement with the town, which was executed in early February 2025. And during that whole period and process, we had been meeting with different town departments and also different boards, including the planning board. We have a summary of the hearings we've done and the meetings we've had to date up here. So all those meetings and hearings have resulted in changes from what was originally proposed in our initial RFP. And it's been continuing, we've continued to fine-tune the design, actually based on the feedback we had been getting from the hearings on Main Street, which has been helpful. I will also want to give sort of some of the basics on the property information for your benefit too as well. This project is 42 units in total. The unit mix is a mix of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. It's approximately 65% of the units are 2s and 3s, and 35% of the units are 1 bedrooms. And that specific ratio really comes from the state HLC to be most competitive for the type of subsidies needed to build this type of housing. So overall, that's 75 bedrooms out of the 42 units. The typical occupancy that we would project for this is 82 to 83 people. That's based on a ratio of 1.1 occupants, persons per bedroom. And that's actually based on what we're experiencing at Village at Nauset Green in Eastham and during the lease-up of the Cape Cod 5 redevelopment in Orleans. Although the maximum occupancy that we have to follow is 2 persons per bedroom, but that's rare to ever have that amount. What's even more rare is there are some instances where you may need to have more than 2 persons per bedroom for certain fair housing rules to make sure no one's discriminated against. You can see on the site, there's 8 total buildings. It's a similar style to Main Street in that they're townhome styles with their own entrances. We have on building 1, although it's not labeled here, it's up in the upper right corner. That's building 1. We have management offices appended to the left and maintenance workshops and maintenance storage appended to the right of that building. So just with that quick overview in mind, I think what we'll do next is I'm going to transition over to our attorney, Andrew Singer, who's going to walk through his summary of legal reasoning for the application on how this project fits into the 40B comp permit framework.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Rio. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney in Dennisport, here on behalf of the applicant. For my brief remarks here, we're just going to leave this slide up. I just wanted to introduce, and again, for the board, but even more so for the public, because a lot of this will be familiar to you, is the legal framework that we're here before you regarding 40B. After I've spoken, then have some presentations from the landscape architect, the engineer, and the building architect to take you through the details of the project, and there's slides as well. I submitted a copy of a printout of this slide deck before the meeting to Sarah, so it is part of the record what you are seeing here. Excuse me. As Rio mentioned, Penrose was selected for this project through a request for proposals process with the town. It's town-owned land, and the town had been seeking to develop it for affordable housing. There is, as he mentioned, a land disposition agreement that was signed between the town of Chatham and Penrose. This is the project that they proposed, and the project that was accepted and that we've applied for today is a rental project. This is not a project that can accommodate home ownership or something that Penrose is in, it's not what they do. And so this is a rental project that we're presenting before you for the 42 units. It is, as Rio mentioned, 100%, a minimum of 25% of the units have to be deed restricted. In this case, there's going to be 100% of the units deed restricted for different levels of income ranges. So it does comply with the more than complies with the 40B requirements. And Penrose will, post-approval by this board of a comprehensive permit, will enter into the required affordable housing restriction with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which is not only required by the land disposition agreement, it's always required by a Board of Appeals approving such projects as well. There'll be more details about the next couple things I'm going to mention, but I wanted to just raise that there will be 61 parking spaces on the site. It's an equivalent ratio to 1.45 per unit, and these are things that will be discussed more by the engineer. The property will be connected to the town sewer. The There is going to be, as you can see on the plan, a new access drive constructed. This is going to be on a separate parcel of land, so the access drive will be a piece, and then the main body of the land will be a piece. The town itself was recently awarded, or previously awarded, a site readiness grant for design and engineering of this access. So that grant that was awarded to the town covers the part of the driveway that's from Meeting House Road up to where you get to the parking lot, basically, essentially. We have submitted to you a traffic impact and analysis, both an original one and an updated one. The updated one was done with new numbers counted in July of just this past summer. So you have both of those with you. Peer review actually has been completed by your peer review consultant on both the site design and the traffic. We're not going to probably get into too much of it today, but we did do, as Rio said, in the other project we're before you, we went back and got some additional traffic numbers data for you on this project as well. So all of that is in the record, and will be something that I know we will be discussing as the project moves forward. The August update to that traffic study, which was using those July numbers, the supplement finds, quote, "This analysis, the new analysis, continues to demonstrate that the project can be accommodated within the confines of the existing transportation infrastructure in a safe and efficient manner with implementation of the recommendations that are defined in the June 2025 traffic study." So they had a list of recommendations, and they were referring back to those. And again, those are all in your packets. The town of Chatham, as you know, has made a commitment to providing affordable housing, additional affordable housing in town. And goal 7.1 of the comprehensive plan is to improve opportunities for the area's low and moderate income households to find safe and decent affordable year-round housing within Chatham. The Chatham Housing Production Plan also writes, quote, "that it is focused on addressing the critical housing needs in Chatham today through a diverse suite of goals and strategies that holistically promote housing affordability in the town. And these include increasing Chatham's affordable, attainable, and an accessibly housing stock to enable a variety of households to participate in the community, including but not limited to seniors, low and moderate income households, employees in the town, families, and people with disabilities." As to the employees, one of the things the applicant's proposing on this proposal, as with the last one, is to offer up to 70% local preference on initial tenant lease-up, as is allowed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And that's working with you and the town, on that at the time of initial lease-up. Chatham's current affordable housing stock is 4.81% as measured by the state. The state's goal, as you know, for 40B is 10%. And the question was asked to me right before the meeting, and so we did some quick calculations about Chatham's at 4.81% now, and what would that number be with this project if the Main Street project of the 48 units is ultimately approved? So if that was the case, if we have the current housing stock, and if Main Street is approved, these 42 units will bring Chatham's percentage to approximately 7.22%. And with Main Street, I think it goes from 4.81 to a little over 6. So this would be that net, a progression up from that. So with both projects, Chatham would be at 7.22% for its deed-restricted annual affordable housing stock towards the town's 10% goal with the Commonwealth. The applicant believes that this proposed development that you have up on the screen and that you're going to hear much more about is consistent with and supports the above affordable housing goals under both the Housing Production Plan and the Comprehensive Plan. All of the units are going to count, as I just noted, in the town's inventory of affordable housing and will assist in providing additional quality affordable housing in Chatham. So the comprehensive permit itself, this law was created way back in 1969, and it was an attempt to try to enable communities to provide more and somewhat more denser affordable housing. And you all are the decision maker. You stand in the stead of everybody, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Health Board, everybody. For a comprehensive permit, though, you only have to vote by majority vote. Under Chapter 40A, when you grant a special permit or a variance, you have to have a supermajority. You need 4 of the 5 of you to approve of a project. For a comprehensive permit, it's a simple majority. So that's one difference between 40B and 40A. Other town boards who you're standing in their stead of are encouraged to give you comments. And you have comments from the planning board and the DPW. You may have some others by now, but I know there are some comments there that the engineer and we will be looking at, and you'll be looking at. If there are state permits required, and I don't believe there are in this project because it's on a town road, then the state would still have to do it even under a 40B. But in this case, the project's on town sewer, it's not a state highway, and so therefore, I don't believe there are any separate state permits that are required. In accordance with the rules that have been adopted by the the former Department of Housing and Community Development, an applicant has to demonstrate 3 things to appear before you. First, they have to be either a public agency, a nonprofit organization, or a limited dividend organization. Penrose will be qualifying as a limited dividend organization for this proposal, as they have for their others on Cape Cod and elsewhere in the Commonwealth. Second, the project has to be fundable by a subsidizing agency under low and moderate income housing subsidy program. That is and has been demonstrated through the project eligibility letter that was issued by EOHLC, which you have a copy of in your file. And finally, the applicant must control the site. And in this case, this is town land where the town has entered into a contract, a land disposition agreement with the applicant, authorizing them to seek this permit from you, demonstrating site control. Now, as the public hearing process proceeds, we will be discussing, among other matters, I'm sure, driveways and access, what you see on the plan before you. But there is site control through the grant of the RFP award to the applicant. The legal standard you look at on these projects is a little different from 40A as well. You are looking at whether the proposal is, quote, consistent with local needs. And I appreciate your indulgence on this. I know you have heard what I'm about to say before, but since this is a new hearing on a new project, for the record and for the members of the public, I wanted to just go through this paragraph, which is that you look at it, the standard of consistent with local needs. You're authorized to impose conditions if the conditions do not render the project and the development uneconomic. And arriving at what is consistent with local needs, what is economic or uneconomic, involves a flexible balancing test. It's a series of compromises among what we all acknowledge are several worthwhile and competing local rules, regulations, and policies. The balancing test requires you to weigh and balance the need for affordable housing with zoning, environmental, health, safety, site design, open space, historic, and planning impacts of a proposed development. That's a lot on your plate. The goal, though, is to always create quality housing that is affordable for qualified individuals and families, and which will be a source of pride to its residents, the town, and the project proponent, while at the same time appropriately protecting public health, safety, and welfare. And as Rio noted in one of his slides, and he's stated, and we've stated in other meetings, one of the key considerations for Penrose is creating a livable community, a development where its residents are calling home and are happy and proud and comfortable calling that home. And they have pride in where they are and where they're living, and it's a good quality in development. And as you're going to hear from the other 3 gentlemen very shortly, we believe, and we're hoping to ask you at the ultimate end of the hearing process, to determine that the project is consistent with local needs and will not have a material detrimental effect on the character of the neighborhood or the town and is worthy of approval. Now, as part of that, with a 40B, the applicant is entitled, and always has to, request waivers from certain provisions of local bylaws. And the key one that's on every single 40B is a request for a density waiver, because by definition, the reason why an applicant's before you for a 40B comprehensive permit is because the project is more dense than the underlying zoning will allow. Now, these aren't variances. They're not 40A standards of legal hardship based on soil condition, shape, or topography of the land. The waiver standard is, as you balance local needs, would this waiver, or without the waiver, render a project uneconomic or unbuildable completely? And we have submitted, it's on pages 6 and 7 of the summary, and we don't have to go through them all right now, but we have submitted a list of waivers that we anticipate reviewing with you throughout the process. As I noted, one of the first ones is the density, which has to be. And then there's also some waivers required for the parking, for building coverage, and some setbacks. And we also put a very detailed breakdown for height variances, so that waivers. So there is a request for waivers for certain height where they will not comply and exceed the 30-foot otherwise limit in the town. We broke that out for you by building on page 6 of the summary that I submitted, so that when we get there, we can go through it, if you want, building by building, and you can see that. We also requested some waivers from planning board regulations, which are necessary because of how the lot is going to be developed with the driveway parcel and the developed parcel. And finally, we have a waiver from the Cape Cod Commission regulations because they are deemed a local board for purposes of 40B by state law. So with that, we look forward to working with you both today and ongoing meetings on this and continuing to work with staff on it. And I would like to turn it over to Mark Warfel, the landscape architect, to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Mark Warfel. I'm a landscape architect with Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architecture. Before you, on this slide we've zoomed out a bit to show the context of this project. So on the western side of the parcel, we abut Twine Field, which is shown towards the top of the slide. On the eastern side, it's Meeting House Road, or Route 137. And then on the south side, we have the Old Colony Rail Trail. Across the street, there is the Our Lady of Grace Church, noting that the entry drive aligns with the driveway into the church. I'll go ahead and move on to site design. So we zoomed in a little bit. This is the entry drive that I was talking about. So this comes through the front part of the parcel and slopes up into the back portion. The driveway navigates around the project. It's a circular circulation around a planted median in the middle. There are 7 buildings, so they're arranged surrounding that parking. We go from building 1 counterclockwise all the way over to building 8. And we've situated this community in a way that it connects to the local amenities. So there are entrances, which I'll speak a little bit more to in a few slides, into Twine Field, as well as connection to the rail trail. And then we have a sidewalk that goes throughout to an area of pickup and drop off. Down in this area along Meeting House Road is the location of the project sign. So we've highlighted it here in red. It runs parallel with the road, so the text faces the road. And I just wanted to walk through what that would look like. So this is the typical detail. It has a masonry base with the sign mounted on top. It's about 6 to 7 feet wide. And a practical example from the recently completed Swift's Landing project shows what this looks like in reality. So this base is made out of brick. There's a capping stone, and then the sign sits atop. On the sign, there will be the name of the project, the address, and the telephone or contact information. The site's uniquely located between 2 amenities for the area, so Twine Field to the west and the rail trail to the south. We're connecting to those to provide recreational opportunities for the people that will live here. There's also a lot of amenities in the site itself. So we have two amenity zones. Between building 1 and 2, this is where the mail center would be. We have areas for residents to sit and visit and enjoy the outdoors. Currently, we're showing a shade structure here to provide some shade. And there's a connection into Twine Field through this way. This is sort of the community hub being adjacent to the management offices. Further on the southern side, in general, the site is sloping away down here as it comes down towards the rail trail. And so we've used that to our advantage in this corner. We've chosen some play equipment that gets built into that slope, and the slope becomes a play element. So there's embankment slides and a rock scramble and some climbing apparatus to utilize that slope, as well as an area at the bottom for gathering. So we have some tables and chairs and places for people to relax. There's also a sort of natural flat spot on the site located in this area, and we've really imagined this as being the, kind of wooded backyard. So this, with little effort of cleaning up some of the debris that's in the woods, but maintaining the existing trees and natural features, it turns into a kind of play space for the residents here. Lighting's really important. We like to take the track of providing the right lighting in the right places. It's just enough for navigation and safety. And so there's two strategies that we've taken with this project. We have a pedestrian pole, which has the light fixture on top, looks like this, and lower level bollard lighting. So these would be, waist height. So when we submit the lighting design, we provide a photometric calculation plan. So this is a technical plan that determines the light value on the site. And it can be really hard to read at this scale. So we put together a diagram showing where the light will land. The important fact is that at the lot lines, we are at 0. So there is no spillover. All the light fixtures are dark sky compliant. And we spec, just jump back a few slides here. We spec lights in the 3000 Kelvin color temperature, which is a nice, warm, kind of mid-level lighting. So it doesn't appear blue like a shopping parking lot, but it's also not, so warm that it looks candlelit. So in this diagram, we have the roads and the path networks lit in and around the neighborhood, but also providing some bollard lighting down to the community area and in between the buildings. Now I'll speak to planting a little bit. So there's a few different typologies here. We have the street trees, which we've placed around the site to enhance the streetscape. These would be large deciduous canopy trees, much like what's shown in the pictures in the top right. There's also buffer planting, which we've shown at the edges. We use a mixture of deciduous trees, evergreen trees, as well as flowering trees. So those can be seen in this second row here. And then around the buildings themselves, we've proposed a robust foundation planting scheme that's indicated. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but that this is a lush planted streetscape for these buildings. And that's a mixture of these deciduous shrubs, evergreen shrubs, and ground covers. There are some areas on the site where we are disturbing the existing woodland because of grading and the engineering, which Joe from Horsley Witten will get into a little bit more. And so we're taking a restoration planting approach. So this is what's indicated here. It's to reforest these disturbed areas as fast as we can. So that's an overview of the site design. I'm going to pass it off to Joe Henderson from Horsley Witten to talk about the project's engineering.
Great, good afternoon. Joe Henderson, Horsley Witten Group. Good to be here. And I thought I would do an overview of the civil engineering items, specifically the site layout, the grading, and some of the utilities. So first, I wanted to start with the site. In general, all the roadways and drive aisles are 24 feet in width. We've also are proposing a combination of 90-degree and parallel parking spaces. The 90-degree spaces are 9 by 18 feet, 9 feet wide by 18 feet long. And the parallel spaces, which maybe I can show. So the parallel spaces are in this area here, and those are 22 feet long by 8 feet wide. In total, we have 61 parking spaces, which Mr. Singer mentioned, and that is for a ratio of 1.45 spaces per unit. The dumpsters, there is one dumpster location for the site. It's in this northwestern portion of the property, and that's where the enclosure for all trash will go. We have several waivers, as Mr. Singer mentioned. I've highlighted here in red. We've got a side yard waiver and a rear yard waivers. And the required setback is 25 feet, and we are proposing a 20-foot minimum setback. And that, you can see here, this is 20.4, I believe. This one's 20 exactly, and over here we have 20.8. So the minimum is 20. The front yard setback, which is this highlighted item, that's related to really this public right-of-way that Mr. Singer also mentioned. The public right-of-way is being provided to, because of the site readiness grant that will build that entrance roadway. So we do have a waiver from that, and that would be from 40 feet to 25.8 feet. But as you can see, the actual buildings are quite a ways from Meeting House Road. Just to note, our plan, we did provide a plan that was labeled as a definitive subdivision plan, but I wanted to just clarify that that would be approved as an A&R, or approval not required plan. So that's something we can definitely discuss with the town as we move forward. This plan depicts the vehicle circulation specifically for the town's ladder truck, and I just wanted to show that we have run that through the property just to make sure that the truck can circulate from the entrance all the way around and back out. The green line that's shown here represents the swing of the truck, or the body swing. The red line is the actual wheel path. So we have prepared this plan, sent it to the fire chief, and they've indicated that they have no issues with the plan. Just wanted to get that in front of everyone. The grading and drainage for the site, as Mark mentioned, this is a somewhat challenging site because of the topography. There's a range down here at Meeting House Road. We're down at elevation 52. And in the back by Twine Field, we're all the way up at 65. So you've got, a 13-foot range in elevation across the site. We also have this large depression here in the southeast corner of the site. So that being said, to make the grades work so that we have visitability and ADA compliance, we do need some walls around the perimeter. There's not the entirety of the property, but there's some along all sides, the northern side here. There's a small wall on the southern side, and then there is another wall on this eastern side along that embankment. The entrance to the site is currently graded out as an earthen fill. So the conditions here, there's a very large depression sloping down from Meeting House Road, and then it slopes back up into the developable portion of the property. So we had to build fill in this area to provide a roadway that would meet the proper grades to get into the site. So that's what you see here. This is just a slope from the proposed grade down into the existing grade. This is done to make a safe condition for erosion and other issues. So we've graded this out safe manner to accommodate that roadway. The stormwater management for the project, I've highlighted that in green. We do use green infrastructure LID approach. We have bioretention areas here, and we have tree trenches here and here, similar to our approach with the other project. We also have water quality units, which are just used to reduce the TSS for the project. Those treat the water quality volume, which is the 1-inch storm event, and that's intended to treat the impervious areas, so all the roadways and parking areas. The large storms are then bypassed, and we're proposing to manage those in this existing large depression. So taking advantage of the storage that we have on site, we are putting the large storm events there. So that's our stormwater approach. That handles up to the 100-year storm event, and that's noted here, and we've kind of delineated that actual extent of the water. This has all been modeled using a program called HydroCAD. We've prepared a stormwater report. It's been submitted for review by the peer review engineers, and that is intended to show that we meet the state policy for stormwater management. And lastly, I just wanted to go over the utilities for the site. This is connecting to the town sewer and Meeting House Road. We're proposing a gravity sewer collection system, which just consists of 8-inch pipe with 4-foot diameter manholes. Because of the topography, we can make this all flow by gravity to the town sewer. We're showing a connection here. It's called a doghouse manhole, where it's just a manhole installed over top of the existing sewer line. But, we're open to, if the DPW wants to do that differently, I think we're more than happy to accommodate any suggestions they may have for that. The water supply is also connecting out into Meeting House Road. We have a looped configuration, and we have one hydrant proposed in the central to all the buildings. And then lastly, the electric telephone cable will also be coming off of Meeting House Road and be circulating into the site. I think with that, I'm going to pass along to Paul Atman at Union.
Hello, everyone. Hello, board and chair, once again. I'm Paul Atman. I'm a principal at Union Studio Architecture and Community Design. We have 2 offices, one in Providence and a small presence in Philadelphia as well. And the basis of our work is mission-driven. It's to use the power of design to enrich lives and strengthen the communities that we work in, and with the partners that seek us out and we seek to work with. We're partners, we're leaders, stewards, artists, and also we're grateful to be here before you again on a very worthwhile project. A lot of the work that we do is community-based, whether it's from, provides housing, both affordable housing, attainable housing, or even housing for some private developers that are looking for neighborhood designs and continuity within certain communities. But it also has housing for institutional clients, one being Middlebury College, both on the West Coast and in Vermont, and also some corporate clients. But in all the affordable housing that we do, we have a long history, 22, 23 years of providing housing in a variety of housing typologies in different scales that reimagine adaptive reuse of historic buildings, provide supportive houses for certain populations, focus on neighborhood design, also with infill multifamily mixed-use projects in urban centers. And what we'll talk about a little bit is the missing middle typology, which I've told the board about at our last hearing a few months ago. But for the public, I'd like to just remind them that brought us to a collaboration with the Cape Cod Commission for the project called Community Resiliency by Design. That Cape Cod Commission set out to look at 5 communities as sort of a not as model communities where they could work with them and identify parcels where housing typologies can be developed and housing can be achieved. Because as we all know, Cape Cod is really suffering from a shortage of housing and attainable and affordable housing in particular. And so we spent a lot of time looking at these 5 communities and looking at the infrastructure and the existing context and realizing that there's a lot of housing that's in the larger buildings that are integral into the communities throughout Cape Cod. And you can see this diagram at the upper right, if I can get is sort of that scale of a single ADU in a backyard of a single family to some townhouse clusters to some walk-ups or some mid-range 4 to 6 units to something that is a little larger with 12 units that is not elevator served and does not appear to be a large apartment building. And so with that, these are the types of projects that we've worked on in the past. Park Home in Newport, which is a 6 to 9 to 12 unit building, depending on the configuration of it. North Cove Landing in Wickford, Rhode Island, which is predominantly townhouses. And then Sea Captain's Row, not far from here in Hyannis. So the architecture for Meeting House Road is that style and in that configuration, as Mr. Singer had previously mentioned, that all of the apartments have a front door, so they're townhouse style in nature. The proposed architecture will include asphalt shingle roof, lap siding, shingle panel siding, which is a composite material, not natural shingles, board and batten in some cases, double-hung insulated vinyl windows, aluminum gutters and downspouts, fiberglass structural porch columns, things that you see in and around Cape Cod and Chatham in particular. This here is one of the building types that we are proposing. This has 6 apartments in the main volume, a small office area off on the left-hand wing with neighborhood mailboxes facing this little community space that Mark had presented and talked about. And on the north side, a small maintenance garage for the project, the management firm. This here is a side elevation and a rear elevation of that building. This here is the 6-unit building, which is predominant in the neighborhood. This is a building that is asking for some building height waivers due to one portion of the building being 2.5 stories. We have bedrooms up here on this attic level, only on this end of the building. This here's unoccupied attic space, and the rest of the building is 2 stories. But what's unique about this particular site is the grade difference. In particular, on these buildings right here, where, as Joe had mentioned before, here's Meeting House, then there's a depression and a sloping hillside that comes up to a developable area that's relatively flat. Some of the variances, because of the way it's calculated, are a little higher than what you would actually perceive from what will be a finished grade. This here are the 2 townhouse buildings. So this here is 1 single townhouse that's 2 stories, a middle townhouse, 2 stories, and then the 3rd one at the end. This here is that table of building height calculation showing where the waivers are being requested. And 5 of the 7, or 5 of the 8 buildings are asking for waivers from 6.3 feet, 6 feet 3 inches, down to 2 foot 11. And again, this is because of that unique condition. These are a little bit higher because of how the grade sits right now. And then we decided to show you a little bit of color, since that we sort of brought that into the discussion at the Main Street parcel. And early on, it was very much our intention to, at the RFP process, is to bring some color to these buildings that are more earth tones, and a variety of, from lighter brown to yellow, to also to a nice light white. But the detailings that you can see here are much more restrained. They're not the Greek Revival with deep eaves, deep rakes. Rakes are these here. And no continuous eaves along the gables, and a little simpler porch detailing as well. So this, I would think, is more post-colonial. And so where these rakes would be much shallower, this would be much smaller, the corner board's a little bit smaller, that it would be a lot more staid. And finally, these are examples in and around Chatham of sort of that color palette that we're looking to be inspired by. And then I'll finally give it back over to Rio, I think, or Mr. Singer, right?
That went quickly. Yeah, I think that sort of summarizes most of it. There's a couple things here, I guess, that we didn't cover that I'd like to just point out. This is going to be designed passive house, and which includes being solar ready, which means we haven't officially figured out where the solar panels would lie on the roofs. We have done preliminary studies on the orientations of the buildings and facing the southern exposure where they could work, and there's significant roofs where that could support the solar, which will be necessary to meet the passive house goals. Another item that sometimes come up that we didn't talk about was that this would open with a lottery, and we would request from the state a 70% local preference. 70% is usually the max that the state gives. It is something that's regulated by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, but we've been successful getting that 70% local preference in the area on our other Cape projects. And what that local preference really is a preference for people who currently live or work in the town of Chatham, or have children who attend schools in the town of Chatham. And that would just be for the initial lease-up only. after the project's leased up, there is no ongoing preference. It's, people go onto a waiting list, and then it's filled by waiting lists going forward. All right. That brings us through the presentation. So welcome to move to the next steps of comments.
Yep, thank you very much. At this point, I am going to read the 12 letters, or summarize some. The first one is from Rob Faley, Department of Public Works in Chatham. I trust you have a copy of this because it's rather technical, Rio, and I'm going to read it, but I'm really glad that you have a copy of it.
We do.
Yeah. So,
Sarah sent it.
all right, so this was received on September 3rd, 2025. The Department of Public Works has reviewed the comprehensive permit application. Our review focused primarily on stormwater, water, sewer, public infrastructure. Relevant comments are provided below. The subdivision plan C-4 indicates a proposed public right-of-way with 2 drainage easements. The easement closer to Meeting House Road is understood. What is the purpose of the easement midway up the driveway? This proposed drainage isn't related to surface runoff from the road infrastructure, and the town doesn't want maintenance responsibility for the large drainage basin that primarily drains the entire development parcel. It would be more beneficial to have Penrose obtain a drainage easement for the pipe beneath the driveway through the public ROW. That way, they have complete control over discharges of any required reporting for the drainage basin. That's number one. Number two, sheet C-6 shows a type 4 accessible ramp near the entrance on the site at Meeting House Road. This type of crosswalk is typically specified at the intersection of 2 intersecting crosswalks. Is a crosswalk proposed either across the driveway or across Meeting House Road, as it isn't shown on the plans? A sidewalk and crosswalk shouldn't bring pedestrians to a point where they are stranded without connection points, sidewalk to nowhere. Where are pedestrians directed to go once they reach the end of the sidewalk at the entrance of Meeting House Road? Number 3, the turning movements for a Chatham fire truck are shown on sheet C-7. Even though a fire truck is an emergency vehicle, they should be able to stay within a single lane of Meeting House Road while exiting the site. Possibly the approach of the vehicle in the turning movement exercise should be revised or the departing radii increased. Are there vehicles that should be considered as well? Other vehicles? Will there be bus service in this location? Number 4, and there are 7, just so you know. There are 3 CBs near the driveway entrance that drain to a bioretention area on sheet C-8. If the town needs to maintain this bioretention area in any way, where is the access point? Will the old roadbed remain intact, and can that provide a future access point? If so, an easement along that alignment will need to be provided for the town. The stormwater calculations indicate that RB 100 and RB 101 remove 80% of TSS. Is this allowed for a new development under Mass BMPs for stormwater management? Is pretreatment considered to be met by flow over grass surfaces prior to reaching the recharge basin? Please clarify. Also, in several areas, it appears as though the water lines appear to be closer than 5 feet to other utilities. Please review to ensure Chatham's water rules and regulations are followed. Number 5, the saw cut pavement patch detail on C11 should indicate that the wearing course should be milled an additional 12 inches beyond the saw cut. This is to offset single vertical patches and help reduce reflective settlement. Number 6, sheet C-12. What maintenance requirements are needed for the bioretention area other than inspection? Is this permit required or simply to support 90% reduction in TSS for those basins? Finally, number 7, sheet C-14, the town does not support the doghouse manhole proposed on Meeting House Road to connect to the sewer main. This design begs for ongoing maintenance issues related to the operation of the town's sewer system. The town proposes 2 clean-out manholes in line with the proposed sewer line. The first should be located at the property line near Meeting House ROW, and the second at the end of the proposed 40-foot public ROW. The proposed sewer line should be connected to the main with a hard T connection utilizing 12.5-degree angles as needed. Thank you for the opportunity to review and provide comments. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Robert Faley, Director of Public Works. Next, we have a note from the Planning Board, and they tell us that on August 28th, this is just their initial comments. They say that they heard a presentation from Penrose on June 9th prior to the submission of the comprehensive permit. After reviewing the RFP, these are their preliminary thoughts, and they will follow up with comments as the plan set and ZBA process progresses. I'm just going to summarize this one. They want us to get, which we already did, peer reviews for stormwater and traffic. They also have primary concerns, which they discussed with Penrose August 25th, and they include the following. Test pit/borings and percolation tests should be conducted, especially at the proposed drainage infiltration area, and should be included with a resubmitted stormwater design report. A development of this size cannot rely on assumptions as proposed. Next, they recommend the planning board, they recommend having a peer review completed to verify that there'll be no impact on standing water at the infiltration site. The applicant's stormwater design should be revised and resubmitted to incorporate LID design strategies as called for in the RFP and as submitted in their proposal. A construction staging plan should be included in the application documentation per the RFP. A traffic impact assessment was conducted but did not consider peak summer traffic. The planning board recommends having a peer review completed of the traffic assessment. The land disposition agreement called for a sidewalk along Meeting House Road. The plans do not address this requirement. We also recommend an 8-foot bikeway connector from the site to the Old Colony Rail Trail. And this will allow safer passage in both directions for pedestrians and bicycles. They also would like to see buffers to the neighbors that abut to the north, and they tell you that you should revise your plans to accommodate that. The agreement calls for establishing a curb cut on Route 137 that's north of the project to allow realignment of repositioning of the entrances. The comprehensive permit submission does not address this requirement. The plan should be revised to address that. And this is signed by Art Sprue, Chair of the Chatham Planning Board. Next, we have a shorter note from our health agent on 9/2/2025. Judith Giorgio tells us that she has reviewed the plan, and the property is adjacent to sewer, and the sewer connection is proposed. Since this is a 40B project, I believe local regulations limiting sewer flow based upon property size is not required. The flow would be 8,250 GPD for the residents, plus a small additional flow for the community building. Approval of the flow and design of the sewer is with the Department of Public and Water and Sewer. The property is a Zone 2 of a public water supply and must meet requirements for storm runoff in accordance with Massachusetts standards. I did not review the stormwater proposal in depth. They should be reviewed by the town engineers. The property will generate a large amount of waste. Ensuring dumpsters in areas that are properly enclosed and sized appropriately will maintain cleanliness and prevent overflow and pest issues. Additionally, integrating a well-structured waste reduction and recycling program can support sustainability efforts and minimize environmental impact. Lighting in the area should be designed to minimize light pollution and conserve energy while ensuring safety for the residents. Next, we have a note from John and Molly Curtin, 18 Chat Harbor Lane in Chatham, received on September 4th, 2025. We are residents of South Chatham writing to express our concerns with this application. While we support the careful and considered development of affordable housing across Cape Cod, there is already a large development underway on Meeting House Road, and we take umbrage with South Chatham again being considered the only acceptable location for such a housing project. We believe it's unlikely the appeal would be heard if the property was located elsewhere in Chatham. Regardless of its location, any appeal to waive agreed guidelines and regulations is unsupportable. South Chatham is vital and a historical part of the larger town of Chatham, and we strongly urge the Zoning Board of Appeals to stand in solidarity with their fellow Chatham citizens by rejecting this appeal. Next, we have a note from Lorraine Lieb, 45 Chat Harbor Lane, received on September 2, 2025. The Meeting House project is not the result of a democratic process. As a resident of South Chatham for over 20 years, I was not made aware of this project until it went out for bids. This happened quickly and without discussion from the people who reside in South Chatham. We were not given any opportunity to evaluate and determine if this would be desirable and make South Chatham a better place to live and raise a family. This project is not in compliance with Chatham's comprehensive plan, which defines the direction of all town actions. Chatham is a small New England village. Specifically, we have small buildings, and I'm hopeful that the ZBA will stick to the guidelines with building height, density, and open space. Now we have a note from Farrell, Smith, and O'Connell, appears to be a law firm in Rhode Island and North Carolina. Below is the very first goal of the 146-page Town of Chatham's comprehensive plan. They don't ask me to read that. Just the one goal, which says that to permit only that growth and development that is consistent with the carrying capacity of Chatham's natural environment in order to maintain the quality of life in town. Chatham should retain its small town and seaside resort character, and any development should maintain that, not minimize or destroy it. It should promote the redevelopment and reuse of existing developed property rather than the development of vacant land. Bylaws and regulations should be created to ensure the intensity is maintained or minimized, never maximized. And they also go on to say that the land disposition agreement for the sale and redevelopment of 0 Meeting House Road vests the ZBA with full authority to honor our town's #1 goal. It gives the ZBA the final approval for a maximum of 42 rental apartments. Furthermore, the parties agree that the proposed plans are conceptual and that there may be some revisions. As I write, it's not possible to download the 0 Meeting House comprehensive permit application link. Thursday's hearing, therefore, cannot comply with mandatory public process because citizens do not know the content of the comprehensive permit application. What we do know from Penrose's proposal is that it was their choice to seek permission for a 42-unit maximum, derogating from the intent and purposes of the protective bylaw. And I respectfully urge the ZBA to enforce our protective bylaw as competent contemplated by the LDA, signed by Penrose. Its proposed building should be downsized from 42 units maximum, in keeping with maximum building height, especially when any building on this nicely wooded vacant parcel is wholly out of character with the surrounding area. And this is written by David J. Farrell, Jr., received September 3rd, 2025. Next, we have a note from Sylvia Kolb. Yes, community development is recognized, but why not another area other than South Chatham, an area of Chatham that has not yet to share their surrounding land? We love our quiet, beautiful, peaceful, and friendly community, and we want to keep it that way. We have enough town projects. Choose somewhere else. Let them share their surrounding land for town projects. Received September 3rd, 2025. And then she writes, once again, because she forgot to include, that she has a concern for Cape Cod Commission's identification of routes 28 and 137 intersection as a vulnerable one to rising sea levels and rain and storm surges, that citizens should be aware that buses and picking up children at Meeting House could be in danger, including when children are in buses. I think community development in Chatham also deals with low-lying roads and areas as well. Thank you, Sylvia Kolb. Now we have a letter from Jonathan Poloni, September 3rd, 2025. This is a law firm of Senni and Associates in Brewster. Dear members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, this office represents Gloria Hicks, owner of 95 Meeting House Road in Chatham. Ms. Hicks is a close abutter within 300 feet of 0 Meeting House Road. The applicant has proposed alterations to the site and new access point from Meeting House that crosses over the old county road right-of-way. Since learning of this project, Ms. Hicks has sought to engage with the applicant to preserve her rights of access, which is a subject of vital importance both to Ms. Hicks as well as the applicant itself. Due to the ongoing discussions of Ms. Hicks and the applicant concerning preservation of access to Ms. Hicks' property and a proposed alternative access, we would like to reserve our right to provide oral testimony of this matter at a later date. While an acceptable conceptually proposed alternative has been proposed, there are several important details that remain to be worked out. It's essential my client's private property rights be resolved before the close of the hearing. Without such a resolution, the applicant does not have control of the property sufficiently to implement the proposed development. As you know, control is a prerequisite to granting any permit under Chapter 40A. As you also know, private property rights cannot be created, abrogated, changed, or modified by any permit granted under Chapter 40A. They must be privately resolved outside the permit process. It's our hope that this issue will be promptly resolved prior to any vote by the board on this application. Again, we like to reserve oral testimony on behalf of my client at a later date. Very truly yours, Jonathan Poloni. Next, we have a note from Erin Minciello, President on behalf of the Board of Directors, Chatham Ecumenical Council, Helping Prevent Homelessness, received on August 11th, 2025. The Board of Directors of the Chatham Ecumenical Council wish to express our support for the project. Preventing homelessness before it happens is our mission. We've been in business for over 30 years, helping provide emergency financial assistance for housing-related expenses to individuals and family who work and live in Chatham to help them stay in their homes. The Meeting House affordable housing projects, once realized, will support the very mission we have championed for over decades, keeping Chatham residents housed and stable. And we urge the Zoning Board of Appeals to approve this application. Now we have a note from Lou Heeb of South Chatham, received on September 2. We understand you are not responsible for producing this project, and this is to ZBA members, and that you've pretty much been painted into a corner by the 40B rules. Please be sensitive to your fellow Chatham citizens who live in South Chatham and think and feel they have been denied their democratic rights by this process and are being forced to pay a significant price so that primarily wealthy business owners, several of whom now are out-of-state corporations, get the benefits. This project is not in compliance with the Chatham Comprehensive Plan. You have the legal right to stay true to Chatham zoning guidelines, especially regarding building height, density, and open space. Then the process provides for Penrose to appeal as they see fit, and they urge us to deny that project. Okay, we have, let's see, looks like 2 more. Holy Redeemer Parish. Honorable members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I, Reverend John M. Sullivan, register my support for the project, and Holy Redeemer parishioners have a special interest in this project because it was at their urging that the Roman Catholic Bishop of Fall River sold at significant sacrifice this land parcel to the town of Chatham for the express purpose of using it as a site for affordable housing. As a sign of their commitment to affordable housing, parishioners have requested a sale price equal to the tax valuation and not its market value. The parcel presents several excellent qualities for an affordable housing development. Meeting House Road is a state highway and is adequate for handling any increased traffic. The town sewer line has recently been installed. If other infrastructure development is necessary, it's the obligation of the town of Chatham to provide it for all residents. The topography of the site will leave much of the structure screened from the street and property and nearby properties. The board will doubtlessly hear objections, and they should think of those objections as ways to make adjustments to the plan and not pay attention to not in my backyard hostilities, and they shouldn't lead to the denial of the application. And the common good of all needs to be supported over the objections of those resistant to all change because of its elitism and at a worse economic discrimination or possible racism. That's Reverend John Sullivan. And last, we have a note from David P. Holden, Chair of the HR Finance Council, received on September 2nd, 2025. In late 21 and 22, the Finance Council of the Holy Redeemer Parish in Chatham considered as one of our agenda items the sale of Meeting House property. Based on that, the Holy Redeemer Finance Council unanimously voted to recommend to Father John Sullivan and the Diocese of Fall River that the land be sold to the town of Chatham for the sole purpose of building affordable housing. As you are aware, our recommendation was heard and acted on by the town and closed in 2022. The town purchased the property in November 2022. Since that time, the Holy Redeemer Church proceeded with the design, addition, and renovation of a significant portion of our church, creating a new main entrance. And now, 3 years after the land sale, the town of Chatham has not effectively addressed the major need for affordable housing. Housing is a basic human need. Teachers, healthcare workers, and first responders cannot afford to live where they work. Businesses struggle to hire and retain staff due to housing-related instability. Local businesses depend on a diverse and stable population. Affordable housing supports entrepreneurship, local spending, and community resilience. And yes, the schools, churches, and religious organizations in the town of Chatham need to educate the next generation for our community to thrive. Thank you for your service on behalf of the citizens of Chatham and the interest of our community and our congregation. David B. Holden. That concludes our correspondences to date. Next, we will go to the audience and take comments for up to 3 minutes a person. As we've done in other meetings, we ask that you sort of form a line over there And we'll start with a raising of hands. Who wants to go first? Any comments? They must, I mean, come on. No one wants to speak? Yes, ma'am. And if anybody else wants to speak, please get out of your seat and go stand over there. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Carol Gordon from South Chatham, and I'm probably going to echo many of the concerns of the people here today, and certainly from your letters. It seems that Penrose wants many, many waivers, setbacks, building heights, et cetera, without too much concern that South Chatham is an historic district. And I don't know if you've met with the Historic Business District yet, or have shown them your plans? Yes?
It's not a back and forth with them right now.
I said, okay, sorry, okay.
No,
All
just-
right, I'll state that as a question, and you can answer it whenever.
Yeah.
All righty. My concerns are, first of all, no sidewalks, people going to work and school, it's unsafe, protection of the conservation land. Why is there a path to Twining Field? Review and reconsider the height and density, the impact on our water supply. Shorter buildings should be next to the abutters so as not to obstruct their view. And lastly, just to remind you that South Chatham is a historic district, and so there are guidelines to be followed. Thank you.
And thank you, ma'am. Sir, you are next. And whoever else wants to speak, please follow the rules and make a line. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Mike Shell, Chatham. I just have three simple points to make. There's been a lot of chatter about policy around town on this general subject. I want to note that in 2003, there's been reference to it, the town of Chatham at town meeting unanimously adopted the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of stuff in there. I think you said it was 100 and some odd pages. It's a lot of reading. But on this particular subject, the town resolved to set a plan to build affordable housing and to reach 5% of the 5% level on the strategic, on the subsidized housing inventory index by 2005, 7.5% by 2010, 10% by 2015. I think by now we all know where we are. We're at 4.81%. We haven't made a lot of progress. We need to. The second point I want to make is this property came to Chatham because the town put out an RFP seeking property appropriate for affordable, attainable housing. The Archdiocese of Fall River, acting apparently on the recommendation of Holy Redeemer's Finance Committee, responded and offered this property at a very desirable price. The town actually acquired the property through the Affordable Housing Trust Board. And I want to point out that at the time that happened, the Affordable Housing Trust Board consisted of all 5 members of the Select Board and then 2 additional people with special housing expertise. So in terms of policy, how we got to where we are with respect to the acquisition of the property was the subject of unanimous approvals by both the town meeting and, in effect, the Select Board. So I appreciate you. You've got a lot of technical work. I said that the last time. I commend that and to your attention and appreciate your attention to those issues. But we do need to move forward with this project, subject to those considerations. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yes, sir, you are next.
Thank you very much. My name is Jack Gillis. Our family has been residents of South Chatham for over 100 years. I'm here in support of this effort. I grew up in Chatham, and unfortunately, many of my South Chatham residents can't afford to live in Chatham. And this is an effort that I think with all due respect to Carol's concerns, which we agree with many of them, should go forward. It is extraordinarily important to keep the fabric of this town available to the people who grew up here. So I hope you will continue modifying these efforts, maybe tweak the architecture a little bit, shorten the height of the houses, but make sure that this program goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You raised your hand, but didn't you just speak? Yep. Okay. I see somebody approaching. Very good, very good.
My name is Linda McElroy. I'm on Tanglewood Drive in South Chatham, and I love to see more affordable, attainable housing. But I feel that what's being proposed here is for first-time renters. And is there any way to ensure that after those first-time renters leave, we will still have local preference? I don't know if that is possible or not. The other concerns I have with this are that I assume the heat, air conditioning will be all electric. As we all know, electricity in this town is very expensive. There's been no mention of gas or any other provision for heat, so that is one of my concerns. If we're going to have people who are low income, are they even going to be able to afford the utilities here? I think I heard that there's 850,000 gallons going into the sewer system every day. Perhaps I misheard. That sounds like a very large number. There was mention of only one dumpster area for 8 buildings. I cannot imagine 42 rental units not filling up a dumpster in one day. And I heard no mention of anything for recycling. I did not hear anything about a pet area, and I'm sure many of these renters would have pets. There was no mention that I heard about elevators with a 3-4 unit. Many of our Chatham residents need handicapped access, which would require elevators. It seems to me that the parking is totally inadequate. The number of units, 42 units, providing I think it was 60 some odd parking spaces, does not seem at all adequate. There was a slide here that said that 1 fire truck could get in, but if we have a fire in there, is there only going to be 1 fire truck? Those buildings are close to each other. Fire spreads rapidly. We have had a summer with no rain. Everything is dry. 1 building catches fire, you're going to need several fire
So
trucks.
you just about, if you could just finish up, you have
Okay.
10 seconds.
And just to reiterate what Carol and some others have said, sidewalks are needed for the pedestrians. Sidewalks totally along Route 137. I think Penrose said that 37 is a town road. It is not. It is a state road.
Okay,
and it needs
ma'am, I'm going to have to
sidewalks.
cut you loose. Thank you
All right,
very much.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir.
Father John Sullivan, pastor of Holy Redeemer, and I just want to, not to speak to particular objections, but to the general policy, the need to provide housing. We need to tweak the project if necessary to provide for it, but it's a natural right. People have a right to housing. We need to be a diverse community. We need to be a community that's welcoming to all people. And this project and other projects for affordable housing in Chatham are a desperate need. And I just want to address that particular broader issue and not maybe the specifics, but to I want to reiterate to the board that the need for housing of all types in the town is a project that you need to address and need to solve. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, didn't you already speak, or is it me? You want another minute?
Please.
Because you didn't use all your time? Okay,
Maybe I have some time left.
you do.
Thank you. Again, Carol Gordon from South Chatham. And I just want to be clear that I do not, and most of us here do not oppose the project, a Meeting House Road project, and we all respect the need for affordable housing. We just need some revision and changes to your plan so the project will fit into the community a bit better and feel that it's more of a Cape Cod representation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Wait. Yeah, you were supposed to get in line, and you knew that, but I'm going to let it slide this time, and then we're going to go online unless anyone else lines up. We're going to take the people online.
For the record, Brian Phillips, 374 Orleans Road. I guess my first question is, why is there more than 2 people per bedroom? Is that for polygamists or something along those lines?
Okay, we're going to try to keep this,
Sorry.
serious.
Okay, so, and then my other questions are, if Penrose is concerned about the housing crisis, why did Penrose pull out of the Orleans project? And then
We're
another
going to
question.
really focus on this project and anything that
I mean,
you
it
think
kinda-
is,
it kinda
that's
does
how we work, that's how we roll here. So if you have any ideas
think-
about how to make this project better, we're delighted to hear them.
All right, well, it is relevant. Okay, so, and this has kind of been reiterated, but Chatham did not vote for this project, which has been said. The Affordable Housing Trust was deregulated, so the projects didn't have to go through town meeting, and 6 strategically placed people were able to push this project through. Kind of unfair to you guys. This project would never get passed in town meeting because it is too big, bad for the environment, and promotes class separation. These large-scale projects set a dangerous precedent. And kind of what I mean for that is like, what is our vision for Chatham? Do we want a bunch of McMansions and then 8 or 10 of these where that's where the people live year-round and can't acquire wealth through equity in their homes? Again, I'm pushing for the home ownership projects. And then the whole housing crisis, I mean, I grew up here, so all the houses that families used to live in are now investment properties and summer rentals. So I think what we really need is home ownership projects, not projects like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you on next.
Thank you. I'm David Farrell. I live at 2355 Main Street. That's right at the intersection of 137.
Are you going to say something different from your letter?
Yes.
Okay.
And next door to me, I have a house that I own that I rent out to tenants, 4 school-age children there. And I rent it at much lower than market price. So I'm not only supportive of affordable housing, but I am personally subsidizing it. I nevertheless sent you a letter yesterday. It was me. I can assure you I've had my law office and home at that address, not in Rhode Island or North Carolina, since 1991. And I've never appeared before you. I am not a practitioner of land law. But I can read a contract. And I understand that town councils put the fear of God in some of you. I heard perhaps a similar pitch from him at the select board 2 weeks ago. And I gotta say, I don't understand where he's coming from. I respectfully disagree with town council's opinion. The RFP that went out from the town was for 37 minimum units. Yet Penrose has gone overboard with 42. And assuredly, its long list of requested waivers could have been shortened had it downsized its proposal. It's over-dense, over-height, and under-setbacked, maximized development proposal. And that's where you come in, to enforce our protective bylaw. Just as the contract signed by Penrose fully understands you have the power to do. And require them to amend its maximized, overdeveloped, profit-motivated 42 units down to the 37 or so that was sent out in the RFP. And that can be done without in any way jeopardizing the town with legal liability.
Use 15 seconds if you want to continue.
I think Penrose should be able to come back with something that all of us can live with too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Going to go online now. Sarah? Steve Buckley online, welcome.
Thank you very much, Steve Buckley.
you-
I'm noticing
A
that,
little louder, Steve, if you could. Can you turn your volume up? I'll get
Okay.
closer to the microphone.
let's see, how's that? Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, I have a similar concern to the other, with both projects that Penrose is doing. Of course, I'm referring to the other project being the former Buckley property on Main Street in West Chatham. And that is that my concern is that there are many other aspects to this of which people spoke today, but I think that there's the one about appearances. Does it look like a housing project, or does it look like it fit in Chatham all along? And I noticed, I was looking at the drawings that were submitted for today's session, and I couldn't quite make out from the engineering drawings that talk about what kind of siding will be on the buildings. It was blurred, but I'm concerned that it's going to be all clapboard, no shingles, which, as we all know from people who lived in Chatham and anybody who's driven around a little bit, the weathered gray cedar shingles is the predominant feature of Chatham architecture. And sometimes you have clapboard on the front of the house, and you have cedar shingles around the other three sides. But from what I can tell, there's no cedar shingles on any of the 10 buildings at the former Buckley property proposal that they have, or on these. And that's my concern, is that somewhere along the line, it'll get lost in the shuffle. And if we don't ask for it as a condition, that it'll be like, oh, I thought you were going to ask for that. Oh, I thought you were going to do that. And we end up with 10 large buildings that will stick out because they're all the same. And maybe one of them, maybe they have gray. I saw they had gray clapboard, was a recent revision. But to me, that's not the same as some white cedar shingles. So I would suggest that as a condition that won't cost anything more or make it uneconomical, that ZBA condition it so that a certain percentage, perhaps half, at both projects.
Yeah, excuse me, just so you know, you have 20 seconds left, Steve. I know you probably can't see the clock.
No, I can see it. Thank you. Now we have 14. That they have a condition there that there be a certain percentage of white cedar shingles, and I'll settle for it even if they are synthetic, because it looked better than all clapboard all over as a herd of white elephants. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next online, Sarah? That's it? That's it? No one else in the room? No? Okay, we're going to take a short break and come back with the rest of this hearing. Okay, thank you. Okay, we are back. So at this point, what we're going to do, once we reestablish our board, is we're going to ask Penrose, we're going to make comments to Penrose. The board will make comments. Unless Penrose wants to respond to the comments that you've already heard, would you like to take the opportunity to do that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that might be helpful, just because
Sure.
we have a few responses that might actually address comments. you
Yeah,
guys
no,
might
that's a
have.
great idea. And then we're going to see if council wants to say anything at some point as well.
Okay. Do you want us
Okay.
to wait for a second until our other board member gets back?
Kind of.
That's fine.
Yeah, all right. We'll just take a short.
We're going to ask Mark if he sees Jenny in the hall.
Mark, do you see Jenny in the hall? No? Jenny, here she comes. All right, so we're back, and at this point, Jenny Penrose is going to respond to some of the comments they heard, and then we're going to make more comments, and then they're going to respond to those. Okay,
Hi,
Welcome back.
We're going to take sort of a respond by committee approach here, if that's all right.
no, sure, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think we heard earlier a comment about the historic. So on the Main Street, we did go through the Historic Commission and the Historic Business District. This site doesn't lie in either of their areas, so there was no presentation to either for this specific project.
They just wanted you to know that South Chatham itself is considered a historic district. I think it's on the registry. So just South Chatham itself is historic. Whether or not you had to go through any other hoops is another story, but it is.
Okay,
So you should know that.
understood. We probably didn't then because there wasn't existing structures like there
Right,
was on
yeah.
Main Street.
Yeah, you didn't,
That
yeah,
were going to be demoed. So there's no existing structures that are going to be demoed here.
correct.
Sorry, I can't read your handwriting.
Carmen Chung for the record with Penrose. I think one of the other comments we want to address with regarding to having shorter buildings next to the butters. That is reflected in our plan, building 7 and 8, which are the shorter buildings, which I think is coming up onto the screen. Those, both of those buildings will not require any height waivers. I think there was a question about whether this is all electric, and with the state funding requirements and the design guidelines as to the state policy priorities with new housing that they want to support and finance, these will be all electric buildings. But that's also why these buildings are designed to be passive house. And we have built passive house buildings before where the envelope is supposed to be very tight. So that means that in the winter and in the summer, you are actually not expending as much energy to heat or cool because air is not escaping, because your windows are higher rating, there's more insulation, and that will help lower electric bills for residents. I think there's also a comment about elevator for handicap accessibility, and these buildings are not elevator buildings because an elevator building would then create a larger footprint, and we want to create housing typology that is fitting with Chatham character. But we do have 12 ADA units designed in here, and there are units where you do not need to traverse a staircase in order to enter or kind of go throughout your apartment. I think there was a confirmation from our team that Route 137 is not a state road.
Yes, Route 137 is an old county layout that is subject to the town direction for maintenance permitting. It's not a state highway. It is under town jurisdiction. One other thing for me, just as Paul comes in, there was a comment made about fire safety, and we didn't say it, but all of the buildings are sprinklered.
Paul Ataman, there was a question about siding materials being all clapboards. That's incorrect. The drawings that we submitted for this application clearly show cedar panel shingles along with clapboards.
Joe Henderson, I just want to clarify, the wastewater flow is 8,500 gallons a day for the site. I think it was mentioned something higher than that. And I believe the DPW's letter mentioned a sidewalk to nowhere, and the intention of that sidewalk out to the intersection of Meeting House Road was for a bus stop. It may not have been completely clear on the plan, but that was the intention of having the sidewalk, and you can see there's a concrete landing area, and that's where that concrete ramp was, obviously for any person who's handicapped that needs to, access a bus or something down there. Speaking of school buses, not necessarily public transportation.
And you're going to probably need until next time to address the other concerns that were in that detailed letter that I read first.
The DPW letter?
Yes. We don't expect you to bark out answers to that right now, but,
Understood.
yeah.
One more response to a comment about the inadequacy of the parking. So right now, I think we're at 61 parking spaces, which is 1.45 spaces per unit, which is really in line with where we ended up on Main Street at 1.5. So on these projects, we originally came in around like 1.3 spaces per unit. And that is what we found from operating our other properties. This be sort of the sweet spot, what's being used. Our Village at Nossick Green in Eastham, I think, has 1.5 spaces per unit. Out of those 65 units, as of last week, they only had 79 vehicles, and it was fully occupied except for one unit. So 64 units, 79 vehicles, and a very similar project. Also, the Institute of Traffic Engineers, ITE, for this type of development recommends between 1.3 to 1.6 spaces. So we think this sort of falls right in the general consensus of what's adequate for this type of development. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to do comments from our board. We'll start with Dave Veach.
Well, I'm looking back through this, the stack of materials, and I've been through it all, but now I can't find what I was looking for. I believe I saw somewhere, this could be my imagination, but somewhere in the materials, I believe it was presented that the access road was going to be some type of bridge. Oh, that's Dave's got, yeah. And the plan doesn't look to me like that. I'm just curious I'm curious about that.
Wait, Andrew Singer for the record. You received that because and thank you, read my summary of reasoning because I used that word.
That's where I found it.
And as it turns out, I was corrected right before the meeting today. They were looking at various options before, but that option was not technically feasible. And so what is before you, and Joe could talk in more detail, but that was the earthen fill that he mentioned for the driveway. So the access this is going to be a public right-of-way, that section, but it's not a bridge.
Okay. And so then I would think that, I don't want to really get into this, but I would think that would have some bearing on the question, at least from a neighbor about and the town, Mr. Faley, about the right-of-way, the old right-of-way, the old road bed that goes through there. And I don't know how that is affected by this.
As was noted in one of the letters you have, the applicant's been meeting with one of the neighbors and has been reaching out and talking to another. So they are working on that. Again, it's, as was noted, it's it's a private property right, it's kind of outside 40B, but it's something important here. So Penrose has been working. We actually met on the site. I attended one of the meetings with one of the neighbors on site, so that's being worked on.
Yeah, okay, good. And then in looking at the drawings and the buildings and all, I'm thinking that, I mean, I see the similarities, some of the buildings on Main Street, and I'm thinking that these buildings reflect that same response that you made architecturally in changing roof pitch and lowering the ceiling height in the building, in the 2.5-story building, in order to reduce the height of the buildings. That's correct? Yes.
Yes, looking at Paul.
Okay, so yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, because we're starting to hear some of the same questions about height and all, and I'm trying to emphasize that Penrose and Union Architects did respond to some of the concerns that we expressed about that in a way that brought at least some of the buildings out, so there's no request for needing, word escapes me now, but yeah, so, and that those buildings are the ones closest to the neighbor on the north side. And then the other hearing, this discussion, in some of the correspondence, of talking about 3-story buildings, and I believe that those buildings would be considered 2.5-story buildings. Jay, is that not true, you think? As long as the floor space on the third floor is less than half on the floor
Of the
below?
floor immediately below, yeah.
So they're not 3-story buildings, they're 2.5-story buildings.
That is correct.
And then the only other thing that is I go around town and think about some of this and wanted also to kind of weigh in the same way in alignment with some of what Steve Buckley said, and I think Lee Hovey in our last meeting said something. I don't know that, I'm not sure, I don't know about costs and things, but it is fairly traditional in Chatham to use white cedar shingles on sidewalls and let them weather naturally. And I don't know how, cost-wise, how that fits in, but it is something that, I mean, now I've heard talking about cedar panel shingles. So if cedar's the material and they could weather, well, that might work. I just don't, I'm not up on the latest materials, but I'm just gonna, I just want to say that in my mind, especially as a transported, although longtime resident here, as a transported Midwesterner, one of the first things I ever noticed in coming to New England was the weathered cedar shingles on sidewalls of the houses. And the more I learned about that, the more I thought, that's brilliant. Because we don't have those kinds of things back in Indiana and in Illinois. We didn't think that through well enough. So it's something that I always struck and found to be very appealing to me about Cape Cod. And so I would just suggest maybe taking another look. I think that the composite materials can look good, and the colors that you've presented, I think, can look very, very well as well. I'm just thinking maybe considering, at least on perhaps some of the back walls or whatever, weathered white cedar shingles rather than some of the other things. But other than that, I don't think I have much more to say at this point. Thanks.
Okay, Ed, you might as well go this way.
I had questions too about the access road when I went out there. I'm assuming to the south that access road will be removed or revegetated, or do you have any plans for that as of yet? And
Sure, so the intention now is to keep the access road to the south. It would allow for maintenance of the bioretention area that you see there in the low section.
Okay. And the access road to the north of the new right-of-way, there's two residents that looks like access that road. And from your presentation, it sounded like there's negotiations going on with them. But in particular, 87, when I looked up the assessor's card of that, it looked like they've owned that house for 20 years there, and they've been out in the woods, and I assume they like living out in the woods, and now we're going to have this project there. And it looks like his right-of-way, or his driveway, goes through this property. So what arrangements have you made to work with this Chatham resident to make sure he has a legal right-of-way?
Sure, I'll take this. Sure, so, the direct abutter and then the
Yeah,
abutter after
87
them.
is the direct abutter.
87 and, was it?
95.
95. Both currently use that access road. It's both ways. You know, if they're going south, they come through this site, and then they use the same access road going north. But with the new access going on to this site, there's really no way to continue that road. And especially in a way because you need to get EMS and fire trucks through there, and we would have to build a infeasible like suspension type bridge, which is totally impractical. So what we've been discussing with them is constructing separate driveways direct to Meeting House Road instead of a shared access way. They would each get individual new driveways from Meeting House that would lie on within their property borders. And so for the direct abutter, 85, there's some encroachment of it onto this site. So it would be shifted a little bit on his property and then, is there a pointer? And basically follow that property line down here as currently proposed and being discussed.
Okay. So your intention is at Penrose's cost to negotiate a new driveway for these two properties?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to clarify the word new driveways for the new properties, it'd be one per property.
One per property, yes. Okay. That's it for me for right now. Thank you.
Okay, Dave Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm still working on Main Street, to be honest with you. It's like,
That's in a couple weeks.
You're ahead.
I'm sort of getting overloaded, you might say. But I had an opportunity to go out and visit the site. Actually, Miss Fenwick was with me. And we ran across the owners of that property you were talking about. And that access road actually, and there's still some asphalt there, that was 137. And then it got moved closer to where the church is today and all that sort of thing. So I don't know who owns what. And he was trying to find a nail that had put in the road. He said, a while ago, and I think as Ann pointed out, they've owned that property for 20-odd years, I think. Where is it? Well, he didn't really know, and I'm sure you don't really know. This will be figured out. But I urge everybody to go over and take the time to walk around this property and see what it is and what you folks want to do with it. It's, the topography is a lot steeper than we usually see. And that's okay. I mean, it's all part of your thought process. So I'm just not at a point where I have questions. I'm just trying to hear what you have to say, hear what the folks who live in South Chatham and other places. I know we had a couple of letters from folks on Chat Harbor Lane. The concern for this from the town actually seems to be greater than Main Street, to what I've seen.
Okay, let's see, Ginny?
Well, thank you for your presentation. I took a lot of notes, and I'm trying to summarize my comments. I have questions, but I think I'll try and morph them
You can do
into-
questions today, too.
Okay. So it'll be a combination, I think. I noticed, one of the things that struck me was the management office. It's going to be in the back. It's not going to be a separate building. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because I'm thinking like Mr. Nixon in context of Main Street, which I know we're not talking about today, but we've done a lot of work on Main Street. And so some of the key citizen feedback has been height, that management office, setbacks. So I'm going to start with those three because that was the first thing that struck me. We've talked extensively about the community building or the management office on the other property, and this one's going to be in the back and attached to the other building. So why is that?
Okay, that's a great question. So I guess stepping back, we typically develop communities of 60 units or more. That's sort of our threshold because that's the amount you need to get the efficiencies in operations to support professional full-time management. And we typically include a full management building with management spaces, including offices for property manager, office for resident service coordinators, we call impact coordinators, and spaces for maintenance workshops and maintenance storage, and then usually the amenities. Main Street is one point, it was the fitness room and the community room. Now just the community room. So both these projects, Main Street and Meeting House, are way below a normal threshold. At 48 units on Main Street, that's sort of like right on the edge. 42 units here is even smaller. In a normal context, neither of those would be able to support a full-time management suite and management building. We were able to get it to work on Main Street. And here, what we envision is this project would only be done because we have Main Street. If there was no Main Street, we would likely, we wouldn't be able to take this on because we wouldn't be able to share some of the services that we do on Main Street. Like, for example, a resident service coordinator could be stationed in Main Street, but then be able to use the flex office space here to meet with the residents here. So we end up maybe saving some space that we would normally need here. So that there's the shared staffing really helps. And then what we would envision too is that residents here would be able to utilize our community room at Main Street. So I know we have to be mindful about parking there, but that would be an amenity that we envision that these folks would be able to share in for certain type of events and be able to reserve if needed. So we're able to make it work because we have the two projects together, that we can overcome the obstacles that usually prevent us from taking on developments of this size.
So Rio, as a follow-up to that, would it be fair to say you could flip that, just a question, and have it in this property and not have it Main Street? And maybe that's not a fair question for today because it's kind of a Main Street question too, but just your reasoning, I understand that. I just wondered if that was anything that comes to immediate mind, why that couldn't be flipped.
So I think part of how we came to this site plan is also kind of how we started this presentation. We started with Mark talking about what does the neighborhood look like and what are we trying to connect to. And from there, we figured we wanted to connect to the rail trail, we wanted to connect to Twine Field, and what are the amenities we can create adjacent to those spaces. And we felt like from there, okay, we want the management space to have eyes on one of these kind of spaces. So that's why we located in that way. I guess if we created the community building here instead of at Main Street, then this site would have, we wouldn't be able to fit these 7 other buildings on this site with a community building, given kind of the constraints about setbacks and the constraints about the fire turning radius. Then the density will be a little off, because to a certain extent, while they can work together, they still need to be kind of standalone from the state's financing perspective also.
Okay. I'm just throwing that out there because density is something that we have heard over and over again on both properties. So I think that that's a citizen concern. Let's talk about the setback, in particular, the 87, the abutter to the north. It seems as though, I mean, he and she, they're the only abutter really that we have, and they're 20, and you're proposing the narrowest, the skinniest setback of 20 feet on that side, and then the dumpster's going there. So I just was curious why we're not providing a little more, why there's so much pressure on 87 regarding setbacks and the location of the dumpster.
Sure. So this site is an extremely difficult site because of that ravine going
Topography,
through it.
right? Yeah. no, I
Right, and the most feasible area to put that entrance was sort of where it's located. And Joe, you might be able to help me with this. So this coming in this way didn't leave much space to be able to, put buildings here with large setbacks. And it would be very difficult to have the access coming in at a different location to provide more of a setback back there. The dumpster up here, that was originally put there just because it was an easy turnaround for a truck. And we could look at maybe putting it somewhere else if that would be more sensitive to the neighbors. I think the neighbor's home is right here.
Yeah.
So also, this dumpster as proposed would be, just like on Main Street, this would be in stockade fencing surrounding it, so it's not seen. Well, you see the fencing, but you don't see, it's not just a dumpster placed on pavement.
Yeah.
Will be noise associated with the
That's
truck
what I'm
coming in.
thinking too, the noise, yeah, okay. I mean, I just had that question for them.
I could just add to what Rio had said is, part of it is too, we want to align the driveways here just for traffic purposes, right? So that kind of drove.
Is that practice? Because I was curious about that.
I think that's how you would typically.
Do it, okay.
Yeah, you would want to line the driveways up. You don't want them offset. That creates a traffic concern, I would say. So that drives the location of this entrance drive and kind of it goes from there. The other thing, like Rio mentioned, that, the topography drops off pretty steeply in this direction. So the more you come to the south, I guess, the more grading and, extent of disturbance you create in this, to the south. So that was kind of the driving factor of why the driveway was here, and that drove the location of the buildings. The setback is just this corner of the building. Just to note, the rest of this does meet the 25-foot setback. It's really just in this location.
Oh, that you're asking for the 20?
Correct, yeah, the 20 is just
There's a retaining
here.
wall that's going there as well?
There is a wall, yep, there's a wall that helps reduce the footprint of our disturbance.
And how tall is that?
I think at the max height, this one does get up maybe 6 feet at the highest.
Okay.
I would
Thank
add too, there were some changes we had made from earlier iterations, that those are now the smallest of the buildings on the property that are near the
Those
abutter.
two are?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, Building A, you call it, and, no, okay. So I think we can expect to hear more about setbacks. That would be a comment, not a question. And then height, I do think that we have, as Mr. Veach mentioned, a similar height, steepness to the roof that maybe we don't need. So some of the height variances seemed, you're asking for 5 out of 7, or 8, sorry, 5 out of 8. And some of them are, which is a lot, and some of them are very tall. So I have concerns about the height. And then landscaping, again, we have a heavily wooded, entirely wooded spot, no buildings. And I know we're not going to get into a whole lot of detail at this first meeting about that, but, you know, I'd hate to see so much of that cleared out. I see a few of the existing trees, and then a lot of newly planted. But I think I would have some comments about landscaping as we get a little farther along.
I think Carmen wanted to respond about the height.
Yeah, I know we've thrown a lot at the board, so I just want to kind of point out again that of the buildings that we are requiring waivers, the waiver request is different, but the actual height from finished grade for all of those buildings are the same. So if you are taking a Lego, that Lego will be the same height for all 5 of those buildings, but the waiver request is different because of the grading and topography on the site.
Yeah, we're used to that.
Yeah, we are used to that. Okay, thank you.
Steve?
I guess I had a few things. The crosswalk you mentioned was sort of a dropping off point for transportation. Is there any thought of maybe extending that down to the bike path, which is the protected crosswalk across 137, so that you can cross over to the other side of the road and to a sidewalk?
Steve, this is the sidewalk you were talking about
Yes.
with the landing spot,
Yeah.
you know, potentially for a school bus and a safe haven for kids to wait for the bus.
So I think, I mean, to get the sidewalk along Meeting House to there's a guardrail along the road and a steep slope. So you would probably be eating into that treed area, relocating guardrails. It's not impossible, but it would take a lot of grading and more cutting of trees, I imagine, along the edge of the road to do.
Okay, because, you know, you're sort of missing an opportunity of having a protected crosswalk there, but no access to it.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at crosswalks when we first went to see the site, when we responded to the RFP, and it just seemed really infeasible because of the way the grade changes.
And I think also, Mark just pointed out, we are showing a connection from the property to the south there, the walkway that goes to the trail. So that kind of is what we envisioned as that connection.
Okay.
Is that shown better on a different?
Yeah, I guess it's to the, sort of the southeast corner of the lot, and then it leads down to the bike path.
I think Mark's plan has the.
Okay, oops, yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's there.
You can see it there.
Yeah.
Right here.
Okay. One of the other things I thought of during your presentation was that there was talk about having one fire hydrant for the entire complex. Do you know where the next nearest hydrant is on 137?
Yeah, I can't tell you right offhand. Yeah, we do have one hydrant centrally located. I can look into that for you and answer that.
I have some experience from a previous life with fire service, and we pulled up there and one of those buildings was on fire, and we only had one hydrant. That would be a big problem. So I think there should be some arrangements for, an adjacent hydrant somewhere there on 137. The ability to boost water pressure, you might want to work with the DPW in that respect. But that could certainly be a problem, and maybe something you want to try to consider.
I can say that we can add another hydrant. That's fine if that's what the DPW would like. And I did make a request for a hydrant flow test, so we can start the process of looking at the pressures. That typically would be done, later in the construction phase, when we are kind of looking more in detail at the design of the sprinklers in the buildings. But I started the process there.
Okay, good, thank you. And then one of the other things that, and I'm not sure where you could put it, is the dumpster location. I'm not sure the people that are in buildings 4 and 5 are going to want to walk across the parking lot every morning with their trash. I don't know if you could have a second one someplace. I don't know what you can do about that, but I think that's some sort of a convenience thing, maybe for the people that are on that side of the property would be nice. That's all for now. Thank you.
And Paul?
Well, one thing I at least have learned, and I think maybe the board has learned, is that we've got a long way to go with respect to this project, given the fact that we've been going on the Buckley property for quite a while, and we've had a number of hearings along that. So I'm going to continue to digest the information that you've provided and the comments that we've heard from the public. One thing I was interested in hearing is that I, at one point, asked the question in connection with the Buckley property, whether it was possible to consolidate the functions that were in the community building, maintenance and shared staffing and so forth, with the project that was going to be coming on Meeting House Road. And my recollection is, at the time, you said, no, it was not possible. But it sounds as if that's what you're doing.
No, I think the difference is, the nuance here is, that's a fully staffed site, and this is a fully staffed site. What they're sharing is some of the periphery services, the resident services, and the community building, the community room as an amenity. But separate property manager on both sites, separate leasing assistants, separate maintenance supervisor, separate part-time maintenance tech. And the part-time maintenance tech might be part-time here or there, but they're both fully staffed. So the shared staff wouldn't all be able to fit in that one building on Main Street, or vice versa.
Or vice versa.
But we were able to not do so I think we had the floor plans, I believe, in the submission. You can see, like, we still need these office spaces, and we still have the office spaces. Now, we were able to get it smaller by removing one office space.
Right. I think at the time, my question really went to the question of whether you could consolidate the functions that you were putting into the Buckley property, were more constricted in terms of space, setbacks, and density. Could that be used at Meeting House such that you are not taking that much space on the Buckley property? And you can flesh that out some more perhaps in our next hearings, but
Sure.
That was one of the suggestions that I had made in order to decrease the density in the Buckley property. In any case, you can give that some thought, and I'll reserve my right to continue on questioning both the concepts and the process. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to pivot on that community building over on Main Street is front and center, and you seem to be just totally stuck on having that there. It's a large building right there, and this one you have your offices, just sort of in the back in a little room. And we wanted you to do that on Main Street, and now we're seeing that here, so we can't help but wonder. It seems to me, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it seems like you want to be front and center over on Main Street so people can know where to go if they want to rent apartments, and you look very professional there. And you're not as concerned with this one because people are going to come down 137, they're not going to pay any mind to this because they need to make sure that they're not getting stopped by the police officer that's always there. And, and they're not going to hit somebody in the bike trail. But when you're coming down Main Street, on the other hand, you've got this professional property where you want 2 signs, and we'll talk about that next time. But you have this really big building there, and it looks to me like a PR issue. And we thought it was too big, and I think we forgot about it at this point, and we gave up. But now we're seeing this, and we can't help but, wonder how come you can do that there and you couldn't do it there. So I'm not sure if that's what Paul meant by that at all.
Yeah.
I just said it in a...
I have a couple additional
Can I
comments.
just weigh in and say, some of us thought it was too
Some, yeah, some of us, yes.
All right,
Like 7 out of 8 of us
Okay.
thought that, basically.
Yeah.
But, yeah, some of us, sure. But, yeah, do you want to comment on that? And then I'll get to a few other little things.
So Main Street is more of our typical layout that we know that works. And it's also the larger size that needed the support. Not that this doesn't need the support too, it does, and we have some. But this one can have less space because because we have stuff on Main Street. And it wouldn't make sense to reverse them because that's the larger project that needs it. Here, in terms of layout, like, we did look a lot at having the front entrance. We always love to have the offices, our management building be the front entrance. Because of this topography and coming in, there wasn't really a front entrance, that people would see from the street. We ended up putting back here because, as opposed to any of these other places, because people driving up will see directly there, will see the sign, leasing office, management office. And the second most important, the second reason for the management building and its location in Main Street was so that they could have eyes on everything, which is what they do here in this building. They'll have eyes here. If people go in the Twine Field, they have eyes over the whole site, where it would be more difficult if, like here, if we put it here, they're not going to have eyes on these amenities or these amenities back here. So that's how we ended up with adding the space into Building 1 as opposed to maybe like a front door entrance, which would be more typical for us.
Okay, and so I'm also going to be interested to see your responses to the Public Works. They look pretty intense, those comments, and the peer review analysis and response. I'm wondering, do you agree, and could you answer whether or not you agree with Attorney Poloni in terms of the fact that you really need to resolve this driveway issue before we vote on this? Is there any, what do you think about that? And can we be assured, if so, that you will?
To answer the first part of your question, I see them as separate, so I agree with Attorney Poloni specifically. They are issues that are there, but as he notes, that's a private property right issue. If you, with any 48, someone comes to you with a special permit and you grant a special permit, and there's some issue with a neighbor, well, the project might not get built even though you granted a permit if there is another issue. I see that the same way here. And now it's something that's being worked on. I'm confident that it's not, going to be an issue at the end of the day. But I don't think it's a legal impediment to you. It may be a practical issue down the road, but I don't see it as legally stopping you. I don't think it impacts site control, and I don't think it impacts your ability, ultimately, obviously, as one of you said, several meetings down the road here, ultimately voting. And hopefully they'll be resolved by then anyway, and it'll be a moot point.
You think you'll know by the time we vote?
Well, we hope.
Sorry, so you think we know? I just had to repeat that. Okay. So we hope so, too. And then the Cape Cod Commission hasn't responded yet. Unfortunately, somebody was on an extended vacation, and we should get that. I checked today, and we should get that. And so I'm likely to want you to follow whatever they say. That's I'm likely to. And then, last but not least, we have height again. And I see that I understand what you mean about the grade level, but at the end of the day, Chatham, has rules about height, and you are seeking a 6.3-foot waiver for building 6 and a 5-foot 2.5 waiver, and then the 3.9. And it seems to me that it's only fair that none of these buildings are any taller than the buildings that we will settle in on 28. So if you can think about that for next time, I can't say off the top of my head what the height of those buildings are over there on 28, but I think it's only fair that these are equal in height or less. So that's my opinion on that. And otherwise, I'll wait till next time as well, too.
If I could
yeah, please.
just respond to that last comment. As Mr. Adamans said, from the front, these buildings are, I believe, the same height, where we went, as the ones at Main Street. So if you were standing in the parking lot at Main Street, once built, and you're standing in the parking lot here, once built, and you look at building type C, you're looking at the same size building on both properties. The difference becomes in how you calculate it. And if you remember that table, we won't get into it now, but if you look at the table, there's the calculation as per the zoning bylaw, and there's the calculation as per from grade. Because of the topography and the averaging of the height around the building, you have a need, what appears to be a need for it is a need for a 6-foot variance legally, but practically speaking, it's the same size building from the front, it just has a walkout. So and we can keep talking about it, but that's one to.
Yeah, but I'm still going to want that, so there's that.
Andrew, that mostly has to do with the significant drop-off on grade down here, which then gets averaged into the average grade, because there's this very steep drop-off.
Yeah. But it's still over 6-foot waiver, and that's a lot. And it doesn't seem fair to the people in South Chatham that they have to have the tall buildings, and they're taller than the other project, no matter how you slice it. In Chatham's definition, they are.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so other than that, anybody else have anything? Yes, please, Ed.
I would just, on that same topic, I mean, you could build, Chatham's unique because it's topography at the end of the project, not where you start, it's where you end. So Jay, I mean, you could put a large retaining wall there, and then, then that height would be reduced significantly. It's a question of, would you rather see a retaining wall or sort of have a walkout? So.
How about a lower building?
It is the same, I just asked the architect, and that's exactly what you could do, Mr. Acton, you are correct. It's the same size building. If you bring up the grade in the back of the building, you're not changing the building at all. You're just changing the grade.
Okay, but you're still looking for a waiver of 6 feet, no matter, maybe I'm stupid, but it just seems that way to me, that it's only fair.
Legally, you are absolutely correct.
Okay, well, that works. All right, then, so we're going to come back on October 16th, so I guess we'll take a motion to, do you want to make a request for October 16th?
Okay, we request continuance to October 16th.
Very good. Paul?
I'll move to grant the requested continuance to October 16, 2025.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Ed Acton votes yes.
Yes.
Paul votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
Steve?
Steve votes yes.
As do I. We are going to ask now for a motion to
I'll move to adjourn.
adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Ed votes yes.
Yes.
Paul votes yes.
Steve votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
As do I. What time is it?
4:37.
All right, very good. Good evening, Chatham.